Yo, 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 I'm Candy B. I be knitting, and today I be showing you a couple of projects, where I'm at with them, telling you about a little trip I took, and showing you some purchases I made. So we're gonna start with an update on my silver bells, an unexpected update. The last time y'all saw this, I was finished with the body, and I had to start on sleeves. So this is the Silver Bells by TinCanKnits. Top down circular yoke, lace yoke with long sleeves. So I had finished the body, and the only thing I had left was to finish 2 sleeves, and I also wanted to go back and redo my cast up on the bottom because I felt like it looked a little sloppy. And since then, I think it's maybe been 2-3 weeks since I've recorded. I was just like, boom, it's gonna be snappy. I looked at the pattern, went to go do the sleeves, and there's no shaping for the sleeves. So I was just like, bet I'm just gonna sit here and knit 2 straight sleeves, and then you just do some decreases for the cuff, and the cuff is done. Put the bottom back on needles, and I'll be done. I'm not done with it for a reason I'm gonna show you in a second. But since we're talking about this sweater now, I'll say everything I have to say about this sweater. Part of the reason I did not finish the sleeves as quickly as I wanted to was because I was nervous that the sleeve was coming out a little tight, and I was gonna have a bit of like a T-Rex fit in the armpits, you know, like my arms were gonna be pinned in. And so I was kind of slow going. I was like, let me knit a little bit more, try it on, let me knit a little bit more, try it on. Since then, now that I have some length here, I think the sleeve is just fine. Also, I'm keeping in mind, last time I talked to y'all, we talked about swatching. It's like, oh, do your swatch, look at your swatch. But there are certain things that don't come with swatching. It comes from like knitting a few sweaters. I know for a fact that this yoke is really gonna open up when I block it and relax a lot when I block it. Not doing the lace on the sleeves kind of brings in the sleeves a little bit, so they are gonna be snugger, but where this sleeve sits on me is gonna probably be a whole inch lower on my arm, just because of how not only the weight of a sweater, once it's been washed and blocked and worn a few times, it relaxes into itself, but the way lace opens up once it's been blocked. And so keeping that in mind, I usually am more comfortable with a tighter, shorter sleeve, with the understanding that the whole sweater is going to behave a little bit differently once it's washed and worn. The other thing I did do, I told you I had to do sleeves and I had to do the bottom. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead, since the sleeves are kind of going a little bit slower than I thought, I'm gonna go ahead and put the bottom back on needles. And what happened was, I could have sworn, this is my memory's not perfect, but I believe I was concerned about it being, the bind off being too tight on the bottom, and kind of pulling in a way that was not flattering. And so I went up a needle size with my bind off. So you knit the body on size 8 needles, and then you go down to size 6 for the bind off, or no, for the bind off, for the ribbing. And so I was like, let me go back up a needle size for this bind off so the ribbing isn't too tight and pulled in. And I just felt like the ribbing looked really, you see how it's curling, and it just looked a little bit sloppy to me. And so just now, like literally right before I recorded this episode, about an hour ago, I put everything back on size 6 needles, and then I bound off again with the intention of making it just look a little bit neater, a little bit more pulled in on the size 6 needles. I really don't see that big of a difference. So I'm just like, maybe I didn't go up a needle size for the bind off. Maybe I could have sworn I did. But not only that, it seems that I've used more yarn, because I'm very generous with my yarn tails, and now I have this much of a yarn tail left. So I'm just like, I don't know, I don't think that was a worthwhile exercise for me, and now I know better that it wasn't a worthwhile exercise for me. So long story short, right after this episode, I'm gonna rip this back, probably the back half of this, and put it back on needles and try to get just maybe at least 2 more inches of a tail here, which shouldn't be hard, but that was just a weird Twilight Zone level thing to happen. Yeah, if I had used size 6 needles, you would think it would come out exactly the same. My idea was if I went down a needle size, I should have a longer tail here because everything would be more cinched in, but alas. So that's my silver bells, still chugging away at it. But the bigger reason it is not finished yet is because of a swatch I showed y'all last time we were together. I was swatching for the Treysta by Steingass, and because I was trying to figure out my sleeve situation, do I go back and pick up more stitches? Is this gonna fit right? Da 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 da. I was like, let me go ahead and just cast this on and just see what it's about. Since then, I am nearly finished with this sweater, which rarely ever happens to me. Usually I'm like, oh, let me cast on this sweater, separate for the sleeves, and then, you know, switch and, but usually I would finish a whole sweater before moving on to another sweater. This is the Treysta by Steingass. The last time y'all saw this, it was a swatch. Since then, I have cast on. I finished the color work yoke. This is my first time doing a color work yoke, stranded knitting. Then I knit the body. The pattern calls for waist and hip shaping. So you do a few decreases when you get to the natural waist, and then you increase again over the hips. Then you do a color work band, ribbing, and then bind off. The idea being that it gives you kind of an hourglass type shape with a body that ends up to be like 14, 15 inches per the pattern. As y'all know, and I've said several times, I do not like long sweaters, and I particularly was not interested in having something fully envelop my hips. And so I went with just my standard. I did do the decreases because I do like the idea of coming in a little bit at the waist, especially after this very generous yoke. I do believe that creates a nice shape. And then measured my motif up here, and then you do the motif one more time at the bottom, and then I did a couple of inches of ribbing. The pattern calls for 1.75 inches of ribbing. I went ahead and did a generous 2 inches of ribbing. I did go back and forth with not doing the other color work down here because, once again, I don't like to draw attention to my hips. Like, I don't want extra fabric there. I don't want extra designs there. And the idea that you have this color work at the top, this color work at the bottom, that is further shortening my already kind of short waist. I'm always on a path or a mission to appear taller and longer. But and I asked Mr. Rulu too, and he's like, and you're supposed to do the same color work around the wrist too. And I was just like, I'm thinking I'm not going to do this. Like, if I were to go to a store and buy a sweater and they had this sweater with the color work at the bottom and on the wrist and one without, I would probably purchase the one without. But this is where my process knitter overran my product knitter, because I enjoyed doing the color work so much at the top, and I really wanted to fully embrace the idea of doing stranded color work. I was just like, I'm gonna do the one on the bottom. Something about color work, especially, well, first of all, something about working from a chart I enjoy. Like, it activates the part of my brain that loves video games and jigsaw puzzles and watching a picture, little pixels kind of come together to make a picture. And so, like, I literally cast this on and I could not put it down. And if y'all recall, I had some hesitations about this pattern, about the sizings. It's not a size inclusive pattern. But her gauge was questionable to me. I did end up going up. She wanted a size 7 needle for the whole pattern. I did a size 8 with my color work and then went back to size 7 for the body. Very long ago when I first bought the pattern, I did not realize that it was 4 colors happening in the sweater, because in her sample she's like a light gray and a dark gray, and so it was actually quite hard for me to pick what colors I was going to use, and I almost just was just like, no, I'm gonna pretend those colors are the same color. I actually ended up switching colors by accident. I had cast on the sweater, and you see where this white is. This is Knit Picks Wool the Andes. Is actually supposed to be switched with that blue, but I think it comes through better having this white be almost like a background color. And so the purple you see is a worsted weight, what is it called? Oh, it's Patton's Classic Wool worsted, and it's in a heathered purple color, and then this kind of teal color. Do I have any more of that? I don't think I have any more right here. The teal color you're seeing is, it's called a jade heather. So those are both heathered colors. The white from Wool of the Andes is just white. And then the kind of baby blue you're seeing is this color. And this is Good Wool from Pearl Soho. And I actually, because I went up to size 8 needles, I ended up holding this double. I have seen people say that they have used it single in a worsted weight color work, and it blooms very nicely. But I just really wanted it to be real punchy, especially 4 colors happening here. So the only thing I have left for this is sleeves. If y'all are interested in seeing my floats. Those are my floats. Unblocked. I don't know what y'all are looking for, but people always show the floats. But yeah, I'm gonna do 2 sleeves, and you just do a little, another band of color work along the wrist area. And I'm definitely going to have to put a tag in this sweater, because for some reason there are short rows in this pattern, and they're pretty generous short rows, but I cannot tell the difference between the back and the front. I think I might have it on backwards. It makes no matter, because the thing I wanted to also show you, the other thing that gave me pause, is it just has you cast on and just start knitting. And I was just like, oh, there, and I was just like, I pretty much was just like, I'm going to do a ribbing at the top. Like, you know, I don't care what the pattern says, I'm going to go back and add ribbing at the end. And I actually think it looks kind of smart without the ribbing. Like, I was just like, I kind of thought the rolled neckline was a little bit more of a casual look, especially with a color work sweater. Yeah, I think I have this on backwards. Maybe it'll be more obvious once I block it. But I think something about the rolled neckline, and I would probably do like a really crisp button down, and it's, you know, it's gonna, you know, be more of like an open neckline up here. I think that actually looks really nice. So, you know, poo on me. I figured out something new. Yeah, it's backwards. And so I don't know, once I finish it and block it, if it's gonna open up too much more, because I don't want it much wider than this. But oh, there, that looks much better. Yeah, that was backwards. I don't know if it's gonna be much wider than this, but my other option, if I want to keep it kind of rolled, is to do an I-cord, and it would bring it in just a tiny bit. But I think that actually is a really nice look. The other thing is, I do believe, I've heard so many people say, oh, when you do color work, like the blocking is just so magical. There is a lot of bulk up here. And so I do know some people are this definitely adds a lot of bulk to the shoulder area if you're particularly petite or you're not a fan of your shoulders. I believe it's going to create a really interesting silhouette because I don't have a lot of clothes that are very bulky up here. And then I did that waist shaping. And so I think it's going to create, like I said, it's just going to be really, really interesting, just outside of my comfort zone as far as fashion goes. But I'm open. And it's going to be really, really warm because you've got 4 colors up here all crossing each other. So there's 2, 3 extra layers of fabric on any given row. So it's like super warm, and kind of bulky, which also maybe that's why you wouldn't want a collar up here, because you know you got all this extra layering, and then you know a collar up here, you're going to be running pretty darn hot. But that's that. Yeah, I really just took this and ran with it. And yeah, super fun, I'm looking this is all in preparation for me to knit the Ventersol. That's the backstory of this. I bought the Ventersol because I've been wanting to make the Ventersol forever. And it was like, oh, if you buy another pattern, you get 50% off. And so I grabbed this one just on a whim, and it's coming out more amazing than I ever thought it would be. So that's that. This will probably, if I was a betting person, this will probably be done before this, even though I started this like a very long time ago. It's just a whole vibe. Then last week, it feels so weird because I record on Friday, so it feels like it's almost like 2 weeks ago. I went on vacation with my family, and I flew for the first time since becoming a knitter. So I was just like, what am I going to bring on the plane? I don't have any experience, and that's a huge thing that a lot of people are like very confused about. We flew domestically. It gets very dicey when you're flying internationally. The TSA, which is the airport security, the website explicitly says domestic flights, United States of America, knitting needles are spelled out that they're allowed. Plenty of people fly with their knitting, but if you're familiar with flying in the United States, there is also the caveat that TSA agents reserve the right to make the final call of what they deem to be appropriate to go across the security. Add that to the fact that I'm flying for the first time with a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, so I'm just trying to make sure that they're okay and they got the things that they need. We're going on vacation out of state, so I'm just like, I want to bring something that I'm not nervous about losing, something that isn't super expensive, something that I can get. My one daughter was sitting beside me on the way there. Her water bottle ended up flooding her backpack. You know, stuff like that happens when you travel. So, you know, getting snacks on things, getting sunscreen all over things, getting sand all over things. So I was very much like, okay, let me be very thoughtful about what I'm going to bring. My usual travel project is socks, and I like to knit socks on double knit needles, or not double knit, DPNs, double point needles, and those tend to be the sharpest needles. And so I was like, okay, they're like literally a lot of blogs I was reading was like DP, like basically what the TSA agent is looking for is something sharp that could be used as a weapon. And so metal DPNs were out. Also, the idea of losing one of those DPNs down the side of my aircraft seat, you know, wasn't a good look. So ultimately I decided on my favorite needles that I use for travel projects. I actually got these, I took these to an NBA game one time. These are just plastic. I paid maybe 50 cents for these. I got these secondhand at a thrift store. They're plastic Susan Bates circular needles, not sharp at all. I don't care if they break. I don't care if I lose them. And I love the idea of just knitting in a circle when I'm traveling and having to put things away. If I knit something flat, turning it both ways, or DPNs slide out one way or the other, but just pulling it like this, you know, there's an announcement, I can put it down and keep going. So I cast on this hat. This yarn is mystery acrylic yarn this is like one of like the first yarns I ever bought. There's a creative reuse store down in Norfolk, Virginia. It's called 757 Creative Reuse. And I got this ball of, I'm guessing it's some sort of either Karen Cake or Lion Brand. It's a marled acrylic yarn. And I just cast on, I think this is worsted weight. These are size 5 needles. I cast on 96 stitches. I always try to cast on in like multiples of 8 when I'm knitting hats, just for the decreases. And probably child sized, teen sized, something I'll probably end up, well, for now it's going to go back in this bag until I need an on-the-go project again, but it's probably going to go in the donation pile. It was just something to kind of keep my hands busy. Didn't really have much time to knit anyway because we're on, family vacation, going to the beach, so hot outside. So it was mostly like sitting in the airport waiting for our flight, or a couple of times we had a couple hours in the evening. We had some downtime and I wasn't too tired. I would pull this out, but not much to write home about there. There really no beef with TSA or anything like that. It was pretty smooth, but I would just hate to either, bring something I would have to, toss in the trash or run back to the car, or have something, have a lace yoke fall off the stitches, Also trying to be considerate of other people. No one wants to hear a whole bunch of click-clacking on the plane. You don't want to take up too much space, or I don't want to take up too much space with, different colored balls of yarn laying all over the place. It's just something that can sit very contained and not too bothersome to anyone else. So that being said, I'm going to transition into some purchases because I was on vacation. Then I came home and made some more purchases. So if purchases are not your thing, like this video, share this video, follow me on Instagram at Rulude if you do like purchases. Our trip took us through a place called Pensacola, Florida. It's on the west coast of Florida, like the Gulf Coast region, Florida, Georgia line kind of area. And you know me, when I get to someplace, I'm typing in location plus nearest yarn into the Google Maps. And that took me to a store called Dixie Knits. And I will put their info in the description box because I had a very lovely time. Each of my skeins, the owner was there and she hand wrapped all of my skeins in this really beautiful, there's like dragonflies and bees and stuff. I unwrapped it so y'all wouldn't have to hear the crinkling, but really lovely paper. I would have left them wrapped if I didn't have, I might rewrap them, I don't know, or use the wrapping paper for something else. But really lovely little shop in downtown Pensacola, super duper friendly. I went in there and I went in there twice because I went there and then I saw some stuff and I was like, oh, I really want that. And so we ended up going back, and both times I went with my kids, and I was just, she had like a little candy dish. I was like, oh, can the kids have a couple of pieces of candy from the candy dish? And she was just like, yeah, but we also have donuts in the back. They can go back there and get some donuts. And so big box of Krispy Kreme donuts. And I was like, oh, thank you. You're so, kind. And she was like, oh, I just try to accommodate children because I know, particularly mothers that knit, they have to bring their kids to the store sometimes. That's the only time they get to shop for yarn. And so she had like a table of Legos, she has donuts, and just super kind, super friendly. This is something both of my daughters and I immediately went to, because I asked her, that's always my question too, is like nearest yarn store, and then what can I buy here that I can't get anywhere else? And this is Willow Tree Yarns by Catherine Godet, and she dyes for this store, and this is her luxury base. It is 60% fine merino, 40% silk, 465 yards of 100 grams, a 4-ply fingering. And I will give you all of 0.2 seconds to guess what the color name is. It is Neapolitan. My daughters immediately were like, ice cream. And so I had to buy these. I bought 2 because I would say I was bullied into it, but I really wasn't. They were having some sort of knit night, or just people just hang out in the store and knit all day. And one of the women was saying, yeah, someone actually requested that she dye this, and it knits up really nice because you have like, and that's I almost got one because I was like, I don't know how this is going to knit up, so let me not be too adventurous. And she was like, there's just little blips of the pink and the brown on the cream background. And I'm just like, top. And so I got enough to make myself either a sleeveless top or a little t-shirt. And I think that's going to be really nice. Or, you know, with 2 skeins, I could do like a bigger wrap or something like that. But I have a lot of wraps, and I would want to do something special with this yarn. And so that's what this is going to be. The other brand that they carry, this isn't exclusively at this store, but this is a Florida-based dyer. This is Bad Sheep yarn, small batch, hand dyed, 75/25 superwash merino nylon. So, you know, just standard base. And this is Wild Iris, which is my personal favorite. And then I also wanted to get this Folklore, which I'm guessing is probably a Taylor Swift reference, but I just like the colors. And I feel like it goes really well with this. This is something one of my daughters picked out, and this is called Darjeeling Tea. And this is actually what I went back for because I had all the ones I wanted. I got this one because it's like purples and blues, and it's like jewel tones, which is like my direct color palette. But my daughter automatically went to this, and I literally went home and dreamt about it. And I was just like, I'm going back and getting the yarn you picked out because you have great taste. And then, so I grabbed these two when I went back. So if you're ever in Pensacola, check out Dixie Knits. Then came back here, and if y'all remember when I did the last Stephen West shawl I did was the Exploration Station. And I worked with a yarn from Urban Girls Yarn. It was actually yarn I bought with a gift certificate. And I hadn't used it up until this point. I was like, oh, let me use this. And it was like a gift certificate I got for my birthday. And so it's like, it was really special yarn. And I finally got around to using it, used it, realized that A, the put up was 125 grams, and B, it was a 2-ply fingering. No shade to the 4-ply 75/25, but I had a really fun, unique experience working with the 2-ply fingering. And I was like, oh my goodness, I wish I would have worked with this sooner. I was saving this yarn, da da da. I'm obsessed with this now. I need to go get more of this. And like literally as I was working through that shawl, Sheila behind Urban Girls Yarn, who is local to me, Richmond, Virginia based, announced that she was shutting down her dyeing business. And I was just like, of course, just my luck. And since then she's been, she had like a trunk show at Dances with Wool, which is our local yarn store here in Richmond. And I was just like, oh, I'm not really in the place to be buying yarn right now. And, you know, I was kind of like, do I go? Do I not go? And I think something happened that weekend where I couldn't even go, like it conflicted with something. So I ended up not going. I was like, I guess missed out on a great yarn dyer. I'm sitting at home yesterday. Was it yesterday or Wednesday? I don't remember. Doesn't matter to you. And I pull up Instagram, and Scrap RVA, our local craft reuse store, posted a reel saying, Sheila just dropped off all of her leftover yarn. Come and get it while it's hot. And everything's priced from $5 to $15. And I literally said, kids, put on your shoes. We gotta go. And I drove down there, literally walked into the store. I look up, my best friend is in there. One of my best friends is in there, and she looks up and sees me, and she's like, I was just texting you. And then I felt bad because I was like, oh, I should have probably texted her too. She's like my one friend that knits. And then I open up Instagram, and people were sending me Reddit links and stuff. They're like, Candy, you gotta get down here. Candy, you gotta get down there. Got down there. And I'm not gonna go through everything that I bought because a lot of it didn't have tags anymore, or they were colorways that maybe the color didn't come out just right. So the colorway is not relevant, but just know I am now the owner of a lot of Virginia fingering weight yarn. I've got a couple of sweater quantities now, a couple of things that I can put into shawls. I have that one hoodie from TinCanKnits that I wanted to do. I now have yarn for that. I'm gonna be busy for a while, and the yarn god smiled upon me that day. The other thing I was able to get while I'm there, she did have a little bit of fiber. She's not necessarily known for dyeing fiber. She had a lot more fiber, but it wasn't like my colors. It was like this orangey rusty color, which if y'all remember, I'm like, I think I'm done with orange and rust for a while. But I did get these two braids. They don't have colors on them, but she does a roving that is tarhi, bamboo, and tussa. And so I just snagged a couple that were in my colors. And then I will also show you this skein because it is kind of special. She had a lot of things like this where it's obvious that it was some sort of display piece. And so she has the swatch knit via knitting machine connected to the skein. And so I got a couple of these, and Mr. Rulud immediately, you know, he's smart as a whip. He was just like, oh, you could frog that, get more yarn. But also the way that they're knitted up by the machine, they're little pouches. And so like I can either keep it like this and use it as a little pouch for something, for like notions or something, or give it to my kids to do something. Yeah, they love little bags like this. Or I could frog it and use the yarn, but it also shows me exactly how the yarn should knit up. And so I thought that was pretty neat. And exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for when I know a business is shutting down, like this display stuff that it's special. She did not have, there was one colorway she did called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised that I was in particular looking for, but she did not have any more of that. But I got a couple of things like that, which I think are pretty cool. And then I got all of these. They had 4 of these and I got all of them. I believe they're Surrey alpaca, but there's some kind of fluff. And she just has blush written on here. And I got 4 of these, which should be enough to do some damage. This has the put up for mohair, silk or mohair, any kind of fluff is usually 50 grams. And I'm just about to use probably 75 grams in this whole sweater. So I have enough to make a nice sweater for myself. This is my first time holding fluff with a yarn. This is like a nylon mohair, you know, an acrylic mohair blend. And this is like a nice luxury Surrey. And this was $10 a ball, so I grabbed this. I've always been very hesitant to do the, you know, it's been a trend, and I feel like the trend is over now at this point, of the Surrey or the mohair or the sari silk blends held with a yarn, and I've always avoided those patterns. And it was kind of like, do I really want to hold things together? It kind of seems like a drag. It's not hard to frog, but mostly it's the price, the cost of it. And so to get each of these for $10 was a huge get. And this sweater is kind of like selling me on the idea. Like I see why people do it. It is a nice experience, and it's not as horrendous, the frogging and all of that. Like putting it back on yarn or putting it back on cables to redo that cast on was not any worse than any other sweater I've done before. There's a little bit of worrying about dropping stitches, but it is actually a really pleasant experience. So I do want to do it again, but I don't necessarily want to buy a whole bunch of mohair or alpaca or what have you. It's very soft, and so I've got enough of that. And then of course I had to just kind of look around, and there we go. At this point, I just was shopping. I came across this little guy, which I'm pretty sure is used to make I-cords, and my daughter saw it and liked it, and she loves yellow, and so I got this, and I'm gonna probably watch a couple of YouTube videos, and I think it's like kind of like almost like weaving, and you can just make an I-cord by hand. It's not like you have those new fangled I-cord tools that are a little bit more automatic, and I think this one's a little bit more manual, but I think it'll be fun for her to learn to use it a week from now, my church is having small groups of people talk to the children, and the knitters are taking a turn to talk to the children. And so I think this will be fun to bring and show the kids how to use it once I learn how to use it. Then these two things are a little bit more immediately relevant, not the obscene amount of fingering weight yarn I now have. They had one of these Karen big cakes, which had on my list because I made that sweater for my now 6-year-old daughter out of that mysterious yarn that ended up felting. And so I was like, I really owe her another sweater. And so this will be a sweater for her. And I'll use this, and then probably the same way I did the first one, use this as the main body, and then use some acrylic from Stash as the accent colors. I actually can use the same acrylic on that other sweater. I'll just frog it. And now that I know the exact composition of this yarn, this is a Karen cake, it can be washed and dried. I usually do not wash and dry my hand knits, even if they are acrylic. It should be okay for her. And I think the colors are nice too. And it's gonna, these big cakes, they do the work for you as far as like all the striping and coloring and stuff. And so I was really excited to find that. And so this is gonna be a project probably for the fourth quarter. Once it gets cooler outside, she'll have a nice sweater to wear because my other daughter has a nice sweater to wear. Might do a cardigan too, but I think pullover, she's still at that age where I think a pullover would be best. The cardigans tend to fall off and get lost. Then I'm not gonna show too much of this because it's wrapped in plastic and I hate the sound of plastic. But this, they had Lion Brand Respun Thick and Quick. So it's the Lion Brand Thick and Quick, but made out of recycled polyester, and they had 4 balls of this. Well, they had more, but they weren't they had orange was one of the colors, and I got this light blue, and I got a couple of purple mauve-y situation. And the idea here is, first of all, thrift store yarn, but it's sealed from the manufacturer, and that's like, one of these days I'll do a video of all of my tips for buying secondhand yarn, because if y'all haven't noticed by now, probably 70% of my yarn is from either a thrift store or some sort of trade or what have you. So yeah, this is the kind of thing I look for when I'm at a thrift store is, oh wow, that's sealed from the manufacturer. There's no, a cat didn't lay on that. It wasn't in a smoker's house. That's fresh yarn. But also the return of the Odyssey of my sister-in-law's blanket. I think this will be a quick and easy, simple way to get that blanket made for her. Because if you remember from the last episode, I have reassigned the yarn that I was using for her blanket to do some baskets. I think that's going to be a really good use of that yarn. And now I have a yarn that is perfectly appropriate to use for a blanket. And so I got this and I got that. And so that actually is a check on my my shopping list. And so that is that. Hopefully wherever you are, you're enjoying whatever season you're in. Have you taken any vacations lately? How do you approach packing for your vacation? Do you bring a lot of projects? Are you more of, I just want to be in the moment with my family? Are you like me? Do you have like a set of little needles, that can go through the metal detectors? Do you have any tips for people that fly with their knitting? Let me know. Also, just hopefully you're enjoying whatever season in your life you're in and getting some shopping done if that's what you want to do. Once again, I'm Candy. I be knitting. I be spinning. That's the other thing too. I missed the first week of Tour de Fleece being out of town. So probably the next time we talk to each other, I'm going to try to do more of a spinning centered episode. So if there's stuff that you want to talk about Tour de Fleece or talk about spinning, let me know that too. I'm at Rulude on Instagram. I am Candy B Knittin on Blue Sky, on Gmail, obviously here on the YouTubes. Do all the YouTubey things like comment, subscribe, share, bells, whistles. Till the next time, peace.